Good morning. I'm Adila Berlas, your host here this morning, and I have board certified Dr. Sheeba Rahman. She's going to walk us through on how to deal with social anxiety disorder and what we can do to make ourselves feel better with all the social anxiety pressure that surrounds us on a daily basis. Hello, Dr. Sheeba.
Thank you for bringing up such an important subject matter.
Yes, I'm so happy that you can join us. And I know with all the pressure, social anxiety pressure that everybody has surrounding them on a day-to-day basis, we really need to know how we as people can cope with it and how we can handle our mental health through easy, simple ways, which you're going to walk us through.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, first of all, anxiety is extremely common. Just to put everybody at ease, it's a very common situation that occurs worldwide.
Right,
So, it's not just specific to the United States, all over the world, it's very common. It tends to be more common in women than men, unfortunately. But again, there are ways in which we can tackle this. Now, there's always a lot of different factors. There's biological factors. Is there a family history? Are there genetics involved? There's psychological factors. Is there any kind of trauma involved? And then, of course, there's the social factors. What are we dealing with on a day to day basis socially? What is your work environment like? What is your home environment like? What kind of triggers do you have? What makes you worry? Okay. And sometimes anxiety can manifest in different ways. There are people who can suffer from sleepless nights because they're worried and they don't realize that that's
right.
anxiety that's keeping them up. A lot of times it manifests as irritability or irritation. People get very frustrated with each other and they don't realize it's a symptom of anxiety that they're dealing with. And I know that you can speak to social situations and scenarios, right, where a lot of people will complain and they don't
Absolutely, yeah.
realize that they're going through
Exactly.
anxiety.
Like sometimes another thing that I wanted to ask you, sometimes we as individual, we feel really good about ourselves and we walk into a room with confidence. We feel that we look great. We feel that we're walking in with a very positive attitude. And someone we can encounter in a social setting and they can look at us and be like, "Oh my God, I've seen you after such a long time. You look like you've put on a couple of pounds, you know?" And meanwhile, I walked in very happily. So, how do we deal
Yeah,
with things like that when women encounter that in social settings where
yeah.
people are kind of, nitpicking on various different things about them?
Right. So I think it's a very good point that you bring up because look, sometimes you yourself can feed yourself positive thoughts and positive energy, and you can walk into some place, like you said, with high self-esteem and self-confidence, but you can get triggered by somebody else's comments or somebody else's
Absolutely.
criticism of you. And that's not necessarily constructive criticism, as people say. Or a lot of times they'll explain and say, well, I'm very blunt, I'm very straightforward. So you have to be able to
Yes.
understand that there's a difference between being blunt, honest, straightforward, and rude, right? So does the other
Right.
person have the right to make a comment about your appearance or not? So my suggestion in a situation like that is try not to internalize other people's negative comments because the negativity is essentially theirs. Like you said, the comment is directed towards you, but the negativity is theirs. And so if you walk in feeling good about yourself, I know it's difficult, but it's best to try to
Right.
set mental boundaries, and that these are kind of
Yes.
provocative comments that people make to others. And unfortunately, it does bring people down. It does make people anxious.
It does,
However, there are
even if
ways
they're
to
not
cope with it.
trying. Right.
So, a lot of times when there's a social trigger, you have to know how to separate yourself and create mental boundaries for yourself. And you have to try to surround yourself by positivity. Now, I know that's easier said than done. However, if you know that there's a person who's trying to bring your mental level down and not up, you want to try to protect yourself and be protective of your own mental health. So, one of the common things that I recommend to people is deep breathing. When you're at home and in a state of
Right.
worrying, you want to always use breathing techniques to try to help relax yourself and cope with things a little
Okay.
bit better so that it's not affecting you. But if you're realizing that, you know what, somebody said something to me and it's really affecting my mood, it's really making me anxious and on edge, you
Right.
may want to set some boundaries. Confrontation may not always be the best solution, right? And so I know it's
Right. Right.
difficult, and I know a lot of people in our community, especially, they feel comfortable just making a difficult
Yeah,
comment,
just saying
especially in
whatever
the
whatever
youth.
they feel like. Yes.
Yeah, and they're unfiltered, right? And again, I see that as the
Absolutely.
people who are speaking negatively, the negativity is coming from them and not you. Does that make sense?
Not you, exactly. So people should understand that when a negative comment comes towards you, don't actually internalize it. Don't harm yourself mentally and
Exactly.
emotionally. That's the other person's issue, not yours. So I would want our viewers to understand that
Exactly.
that when people are treating them this way, they as people should stay positive and continue liking themselves and loving themselves as they should, to give themselves a better
As they
feeling
should.
about who they are.
Exactly. See, absolutely. Self-esteem comes from yourself. And if you're walking in with a good, healthy attitude, then
Right.
understand that the person who's bringing you down may not be at the same mental level as yourself. You may be mentally healthier than the other person, and they're just trying to bring you down to their level so that you feel worse about yourself. So you have to go home, look in the mirror, and understand that, you know what? This wasn't from me. This is not coming from me. I came into this
Exactly.
gathering with a positive
Right.
attitude. So it's important, especially for younger girls, to be able to explain that to themselves.
Yes,
So that's a very good
absolutely.
point. And
Absolutely.
again, key point and take home factor is do not internalize. And if needed, then set mental boundaries for yourself.
And a lot of times, I think, as well as young girls, even boys are affected by things that people say to them. I know girls tend to complain and whine and feel it more. And I think that a lot of times boys internalize it and they don't express it either because they're also going through the same thing that girls are as well. So when you say
Yeah,
that
and
when people
sometimes
are anxious and then
it's
they lose like sleep and stuff like that, what can be, solution to that? Should it be sleep medication or calming teas or exercise, yoga? What do you recommend?
So all of those are very good, of course. Exercise is an excellent way to treat both anxiety and depression. It's the healthiest
Right.
way to get yourself physically moving and to help the secretion of endorphins from your brain. So exercise is excellent.
Absolutely.
Calming teas also work. But again, I think a reminder to the youth and everybody else, men and women, is to try to separate yourself mentally from whatever it is that's causing that. So a lot of times people will be worrying about something and they don't realize where
Right.
it's coming from. They're having difficulties falling asleep. They're not eating. They're feeling restless. They're feeling on edge, but
Right.
they don't know where it's coming from. So you have to trace it back to where is this coming from? Is it coming from financial problems? Is it coming from spiritual problems? Is it coming from medical problems? Once you identify your triggers, then you have to kind of go back and work on it. So, calming teas are good, but again, deep breathing, meditation, prayers. Prayers are extremely therapeutic all across the board. So, meditation, exercise, these are universal things that you can use. Another thing is there's
That's
a little
very
technique
good
that we
advice.
use.
Thank you.
Right. Focus on your own mind, body, and soul. So once you bring your mind to your inner self and building yourself up, then that will help heal whatever it is you're experiencing and whatever the triggers are.
Sounds good. That's very good advice. And I hope everyone out there will take your advice and listen to what you're saying. And another thing, so when you're treating your patients, do you first give them verbal therapy and then resort to medication? Or is it a mix of a little bit of both? Or how does it work?
So therapy is always extremely effective. And when I recommend therapy to people and counseling, it's not just a venting session. I always tell people make sure that you walk out of your session with coping skills. How do I cope with this specific stressor?
Right.
Medications are also very effective. So the most effective treatment is a combination of the two. Okay. So as a
Okay.
psychiatrist, I obviously prescribe medications, and I do want to put
Right.
people at ease that it is okay to take medications for depression and anxiety when needed. Just like someone can have a very healthy lifestyle and still have high blood pressure, and eventually they may need to
Right.
take
That's true.
medications for their blood pressure. Same thing with thyroid. People can have a very healthy lifestyle and still need thyroid
Right.
medications. With mental health, it's the same
Absolutely.
thing. You may be doing everything right. You may not have any triggers. You may still be,
Right.
people still feel anxious and nervous because that is the nature of the disorder. And so in that case, sometimes medications does that is a necessary part of the treatment. So, and again, I want to kind of take the stigma away from seeking treatment for mental health.
Okay.
So medications, therapy, but if you haven't gotten to that point yet, of course, exercise, meditation, putting yourself in a calming,
Right.
healing environment, staying away from situations where you know this is going to cause me some anxiety, palpitations. A lot of times,
Right.
that's a
Heart
very
racing. A lot of
common,
people get racy
it's
heart.
racing
Yes.
heart, racing thoughts.
Absolutely.
These are all symptoms of anxiety. So you want to make sure that you address it head on and you're ready to go about it in the right way.
So sometimes I feel culturally, in our culture, they look at it in a somewhat in a negative way. Like, you can deal with anxiety with a little bit of medication. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It's a medical health condition as other health conditions are.
Concerns that I always have that culturally, the South Asian community in particular has a hard time accepting that
Yes, they do.
someone can have mental illness, and there's such a taboo or a stigma associated with it, which I work very hard in my community to try to make sure that we remove that stigma, that we don't make it as
Right.
taboo, that people do feel comfortable calling a psychiatrist, as comfortable as they would feel as
Absolutely.
calling a dermatologist or an endocrinologist or
Right.
some or a surgeon. So it's a part of your health that you have to take care of. You cannot neglect. And sometimes your behavior patterns and your relationships with other people, you have to understand it's maybe because of either their mental health or your own mental health. So
Oh
you have
yeah.
to be willing to address the situation at hand.
Got it. And
No
what do you
harm in
say
that.
about like mind over matter when you have to keep your mind calm and controlled at different points in your life? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, of course, you want to focus on your thoughts. You have to focus on healthy thoughts. And we call this reframing or restructuring of the thoughts. So if you're going in somewhere and you're thinking, okay, I'm feeling terrible today, I'm feeling terrible today, you have to trace it back to that thought. Rephrase that thought and tell yourself, I'm not feeling terrible today. Today's going to be a good day. And you start to practice this, and it takes a lot of technique and practice to reframe and restructure your thoughts. A lot of times you want to bring yourself in the moment and say, okay, what am I at? Where am I right now? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? Is it life threatening? If it's not, God forbid, and if you're in a safe place, then you bring your mind back to there. And yes, your thoughts will affect your mood, your behavior, your
It
actions,
affects it
and
affects your
many other
health
things
also.
around you.
And like you
100%.
said, a really good
100%.
thing that you said is when you bring in religion. Religion is calming. When we pray, alhamdulillah, mashallah, when we offer our prayers, it gives us calmness. It gives us a sense of stability. And it helps us mentally also, as well as emotionally and physically. You feel a sense of calmness after you do that. So that's excellent that's what that's what you are praising also in your talks as well.
And again, that has its built-in therapeutic benefits. When you're saying words of praise, when you're saying words that are common, when you're doing
Right.
recitations, a lot of times culturally people see this as a task. But I always encourage them that you have to see that as your meditation. You have to see
As
that
your
as your moment
meditation.
of peace. And that's your moment of letting go. Another point I want to make is to also, when I say don't internalize things, when it comes to
Right.
negativity from outsiders, you have to let it go. Whatever their words are,
Yeah.
whatever happened to you that is bothering you,
Absolutely. Because
tell
a
your
lot of
mind,
times when
let
I
it
see
go.
women, yeah, when I see women here and there, they're letting go is the difficult part for them, and they keep on dwelling on certain things over and over again. So what do you say to that? Like when they dwell on those individuals that are constantly dwelling on negative and then they can't move forward. Do you see a lot of
Exactly.
that?
So we call those ruminating thoughts is when you keep thinking the same thing over and over and over again, and you keep ruminating about the same thing. Okay, my friend said this to me 3 weeks ago. Now, 3 weeks later, you're still thinking about the same thing. You're still thinking
Yeah.
about the same thing. Now you have to understand this is a thought that keeps playing in your mind over and over again. And
It
again,
keeps
you have to
hounding them
reframe,
constantly. Yes.
restructure, but that's the nature of anxiety. So now you've identified that these ruminating thoughts are a symptom of anxiety, and that is when you start to put these things into practice, right? You start the deep
Right.
breathing, you start the meditation, you start the exercise. And then if all else, beyond all those things, if you need to see a
Right.
therapist, if you need to see a psychiatrist, you move forward with those, because at this point it's outside of what that trigger was, right? Now it's your thoughts
Absolutely.
that are ruminating and going in circles.
Going in circles. So, do you recommend a psychologist before a psychiatrist, or can people come straight to a psychiatrist? Like, what do they think of? Like, when they feel that they're in the need, they have no other solution, they tried everything, should they go to a psychologist first and then approach a psychiatrist, or can they directly come to a psychiatrist?
Well, the difference is that psychiatrists are medical doctors, and we are, of course, we've studied medicine and then we've specialized in the mind. So, it's your preference really, but if you're going for a fully medical approach, then I would obviously recommend seeing a psychiatrist who can offer both therapy and medications. Versus if you do see a psychologist and it's also beneficial, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but from a psychologist, you're more likely to get therapy alone and perhaps then get a referral to a psychiatrist. Versus if you see a psychiatrist, they can potentially do your therapy as well as your medication management.
Leads to a psychiatrist. Eventually, the psychologist can lead to going to a psychiatrist. So psychiatrist is like they
Or
do both. They help you heal verbally and plus they can give you medication. Because a lot of times people
yes,
are
and
very
they have.
confused about that. They don't understand the
I know,
difference.
and that's why it's a very good question. And it's a biological approach that we take. It's a biological, psychological, social approach. We take the whole mind and body into consideration. We rule out any medical problems, if it's a thyroid problem, if it's a problem, anything cardiovascular related. We make sure that the whole
Right.
medical workup is done. Everything else is ruled out, and then we target the mental health issue at hand. So again, that's someone that you can go to a psychiatrist for both medications and therapy, both. So I just
Yeah,
want to
no,
make
you
that
explain it
clear.
very beautifully and
Versus seeing a
it helps.
psychologist, you can get therapy, but not necessarily medications.
Exactly. No, you explain everything very well and clearly, and I'm sure everyone can benefit from what you're saying, definitely. So another thing I wanted to say, like as individuals, like we're only liable for our own actions, what we're doing, that's in our control. What others are saying and doing, that isn't. So I think that's what people have to understand, that to give us positivity about us and towards ourselves, we should disregard any negative opinions or any negative comments that are coming from here and there. And that helps a person mentally and emotionally, I feel. When you just shun the
And
negative
the
out, kind
key
of.
Yeah, the key words to yourself should be let it go. Let it go. Whatever it
Let
is,
it
let
go.
it go. And
Right.
that's easier said than done, right? It takes a
Yeah.
lot of
Yes.
practice to let it go. And that also translates into do not internalize it. Do not take the other person's negativity and make it your own. You have to practice
Make it your
letting
own.
it go and putting it away. And again, these are the physical active techniques that I'm telling you, the mindfulness, being
Perfect.
in the moment, being in a moment of prayer, meditation, exercise. Again, these are all
Right.
the practices that I'm really going to emphasize and encourage everyone to do to help you let it go. right? So you have to
Just to
practice that.
have
And
more of a
again,
happier outlook, right? So now another thing nowadays, we have all this social media and everything. People have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and a lot of times I see people, obsessing over all of those things. Like, if you see someone else doing something and you're not doing it, if you're not a part of it, and if they're a part of it, it's just this constant thing that people have going. And what do they do in situations like that? Like, social media is really kind of taking over people's emotions and their mind, which to some people, it's not a big deal. They don't care. Some people open up their social media and it's like, okay, yeah, and they're enjoying it. But I see and hear so many people internalizing what they're seeing, and so much
yeah. So let's
competition
talk
and
about that.
jealousy. Yeah,
That's an excellent question. So social media is very powerful, as we all know it. Okay, it's extremely powerful, and it's a very nice way to help promote a lot of things, whether it's a business, whether it's
absolutely.
a good cause. So it has its advantages. However, we are seeing that people are becoming more anxious. Okay, the anxiety
Yes,
from the
yes,
comparison and the constant scrolling and the constant imagery is affecting people's mental health, right? So, first of all, it's
right,
affecting people's attention span because you can sit on your phone literally for hours and keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. That's
absolutely.
called doom scrolling to the point of no return, right? So, you have
Right,
to
right.
try to start to limit the use and start to time yourself as to when you're using it and why you're seeing their images and
Okay,
what they're doing every 5 minutes is going to make it much easier for you to compare yourself to them. Now, there are so millions of people who will go on social media
right,
thinking, I got this. I'm not going to compare myself to anybody. But the image will stay in your mind. The image will stay in your mind, and then the thoughts will start, and then the ruminating thoughts start, and the thoughts will lead to a conversation with someone else, perhaps a venting session,
right,
and it can spiral into something else, right? So,
right.
again, limit your social media use. Take the most out of it. But when it comes down to that
Right.
comparison, you're on your own. You have to tell yourself, this is the reason why I'm going on social media. I just want to listen to some music. I just want to get some recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll see some, something healthy or positive. But when
Right.
it comes down to it's affecting your own mental health, that's when you try to say, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to take a step back and I need to limit the use and I need to monitor my own use. Listen, you can't really stop people from posting what they're going
No,
to post. And
absolutely.
a
And
lot of
people
times
want to
there's a lot of
share.
toxic behavior. Yeah,
Right. But a lot of times people are happy and they want to share their happiness with others, and other
sure.
people are happy for them. So, in a way,
Mhm.
there's a lot of positive also. You get to have a lot of positive thoughts from it as well. But there are other people that don't think positive that can take like negative out of it. So, I guess it's a mix of all different things that are going on with that aspect.
People do get a lot out of posting it. They get a lot of reassurance and that little dopamine rush once they get likes, once they get comments.
Yeah, they
People are
feel good.
validating them. So you're getting validation from social media when people are liking your
Absolutely.
content.
Absolutely.
So it does have a positive, but the problem is that you get hooked on it. It's very, very
It,
easily
it is very
addictive, right?
addictive. It's just like any other
Yeah,
addictive thing. Like, even when you go to a social gathering, sometimes you see that one person that's just on their phone the whole time,
on their phone.
scrolling. And
Yeah.
then another thing that I see nowadays, that when we were growing up and when we were younger and we would go to a social gathering, everybody would converse with each other, laugh, smile, have a nice time, and enjoy each other's company. Whereas now it's all about how many pictures are we going to take? What are we going to post, and this and that. So that has changed also along with time.
It has, and I think people need to understand that, you know what, if I'm going to have a get together, if I'm going to socialize, I need at least this much time away from my phone, and where I'm actually making eye contact with someone, where I'm
Right.
actually exchanging healthy words back and forth, like culturally,
Yes.
we say salam to each other. We try to converse in a way where it's peaceful. We initiate the conversation with peace. So we want to maintain the integrity of that greeting, keep a peaceful
I,
conversation and keep your social interactions pleasant versus just looking down. So again, the attention span shifts immediately. You go from having a conversation to, oh, hold on, let me check my message. Oh, hold on, let me
yeah,
post this,
you
right?
see that all the
It
time. Yes.
butchers the conversation, right? So you want to start to practice socially. I'm going to spend this much time away from my phone, and I'm actually
Okay.
going to take the time to interact with people in a healthier way, make eye
Right.
contact, sustain the eye contact, and
Have a
keep it healthy.
conversation with them, right? Have a conversation
Exactly.
rather than constantly, taking pictures and stuff. Because some people
Exactly.
miss that. I hear so many women saying, in social settings that they miss that whole thing where people could just sit there and just converse with one another. And now another thing,
Yeah.
like before when we were thinking of a friend or a family member, you pick up the phone and you call them and you hear their voice. Now everything is through text message, through messaging. So
Yeah.
you don't get that
Right.
individual connection that you were able
Interaction.
to make. Because
Yeah.
I think verbally, when you talk to somebody, that's a different connection. Whereas when people are typing and they're putting it, through text message, sometimes it's misinterpreted also, I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, because we're in such a virtual world and everything is media related, again, the upside is the
Right.
convenience of the communication. Of course, you can always FaceTime someone from one part of the world to the other.
Yes,
So that's
which
the
is great.
upside.
That's the best.
The downside is exactly that, is that people are not taking the time to really relate to each other in a more personable setting, and then sometimes that's what becomes necessary when it comes to
Right,
family, when it comes to loved ones. It's
right,
not just about a convenience, it's also about
right.
emotions and feelings. In a social setting,
Absolutely.
a lot of times now it's become who's who and whose photograph is where. And it's all about the image that you're putting out on social
The
media
image that you're
versus
creating
the
on social media,
relationship.
absolutely.
Exactly. Versus the actual substance behind that relationship. I think people back in the day had more meaningful relationships with each other. They had more sustainable friendships with each other.
They
They
did.
have
Absolutely.
long-term friendships that had nothing to do with social media. It had
No.
nothing to do with pictures that were posted. So you have to be able to tell yourself, do I have better friends or did my parents have better friends?
Yeah.
Were my parents able to sit there and have relationships with people, throughout their lives? Or is the person that I posted a picture with 2 weeks ago, are they still my friend today? So you have to be
Right.
willing to understand the quality of those friendships and those relationships. And everything is not the way it's seen on social media. You can post
Yeah.
something and it may be completely the opposite of your reality, right? A lot of people are posting the exact
Right.
opposite. So again, I think the purpose of these types of conversations is to bring this out on the table and have a healthy discussion and really be able to understand these things are causing anxiety. They are affecting people's mood. They are making people frustrated. A lot of times, I mean, a lot of men and women both complain that they're having trouble in their relationship because the other
Right.
person's always on the phone or there's no
Oh,
attention
yes,
or
I
they
hear
they're
that
not
all the
communicating
time.
with
I
their
absolutely
kids.
do. Yes, I see that.
Exactly.
And luckily my kids grew up in an age where the phone was definitely there, but not at this level. So
Not
I
to
was
that
able to do
level.
so many things with them and enjoy so much. And I see when I would take them to the park, my attention would just be playing with them and spending time with them. Now their mom's at the park and they're looking at their phones and then, it's like they're distracted. It's a distraction. So
And
what you
that
could
goes
have
back
given
to the attention.
100% of, yeah. So it distracts everybody, even when you go out to dinner at a dinner table. This phone is a major distraction for people. Like you said, it has a lot of good things about it, a lot of positive things, but then it comes with the negative. But
Yes.
people will
So
learn
again,
how to balance.
yeah, and they have to sometimes it's just important to schedule it and say, you know what, Monday after 5 p.m., I'm going to put my phone away, or this is
Right.
my phone time and this is not my phone time. When I'm with this person, I'm not going to be on my phone. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to be able to
Exactly. I
schedule it.
hear.
Otherwise, it will take over. You will go from one image to the next, to the next, to the next, and
Yeah,
before
it'll
you know
take
it,
over
your whole
everything.
day has gone by. So amazing that people are struggling now with distractibility, limited attention spans because they're so hooked on social media, because it's so addictive. So again, everything in moderation and nothing
Is
to an
good.
extreme.
N-
Yes, and try
Right.
to visualize your day the day before and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to spend this much time on my mental health. I'm going to give myself an hour on meditation,
Right.
half an hour on exercise, whatever it is,
Exactly.
create a balance in your life. So again, I hope that as a psychiatrist, I can help prevent the most extreme forms of anxiety by
Which you
giving you these
are,
tips and
which you
tools.
absolutely are. So maybe in our next episode, we can do like a checkpoint, that we can give through your perspective as a board certified psychiatrist, a person with so much experience and knowledge, that we can give like a checkpoint, what they can go through with step by
Yeah,
step, how
step
to
by step.
correct this. So I think that's what we'll go over next time when we see you, that
Absolutely.
how they can break it down, how they can have structure in this.
Right. And again, just to summarize for today, I would again encourage everyone to, first of all, not internalize the negativity. Try to set healthy
Exactly.
boundaries. Take
Right.
care of your mental health by exercising, by meditation, right? Deep breathing techniques and mindfulness. And again, if you need to see a psychiatrist and seek a higher level
There's
of
nothing
care,
wrong with it.
try not to hesitate to do that. Exactly.
Exactly.
Schedule your social media time. Try to be mindful of your interactions with people. So I hope these are the take home messages that I want people to
Yes.
walk away with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheba, for joining us, and we really appreciate all the positive advice that you gave us today and all the good feedback that you gave us. And hopefully, everyone can gain some knowledge out of this and help their life become better in a good way with all the information that you provided with us today. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much, and we appreciate everything.